I was it came from a conversation with my grandmother during COVID, who was, a little bit more worried about getting sick and possibly passing away. But also, like, there was a lot of isolation for old people. Like, my grandfather died a while ago, and so she lives with my aunt, but is still like, she had to be pretty isolated from the world during all that. And so, like, I was just trying to put myself in her shoes. How do you process that loneliness? How do you, and there's like, I think you would like to think that sweet old grandmas don't deal with depression and thoughts of suicide. Um,
Right.
but like, that's actually, reality is different. And so, yeah, I was just trying to, like, paint that picture and put myself in her shoes and other people's, elderly people's shoes, and be able to empathize.
Today, we have a special guest joining us. Born and raised in Boise, Idaho, he's been captivating audiences with his music since he was 17. Influences by the stunning landscapes of Idaho and the surrounding mountains, he has crafted a unique singer-songwriter style that blends folk, country western, and indie rock. He's a storyteller at heart, weaving tales of ordinary life, hard moments, and the American West into his songs. Please welcome J. William Miller. I'm here with J. William Miller. He's based out of Boise, Idaho, and you're on tour right now, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm home right now, but like, kind of in the middle of, like, summer dates and stuff. Yeah.
Nice. So I read that some of your earliest memories of music were like going to football games with your dad, listening to AC/DC, Garth Brooks. Did those influence your sound and some of the reasons why you wanted to become a musician?
Uh, yeah, I always loved, uh, like that classic rock vibe, and and I kind of grew up in more of like a when punk and uh, or like pop punk kind of stuff was going on. So that was like rock and roll, like I listened to. But I would listen to my dad's stuff, and then living in Idaho, country is the number one genre. So, like, the big stations here are country stations, and so uh, I kind of, for a long time, was just like, oh man, this genre is lame. And what's funny is, like, when I would sing kind of like a country singer, and so because I was just around it so much, and like, and I got, like, before I ever, like, hit a stage or anything, people would be like, oh, he's like a honky tonk singer, uh, and so I think those two things kind of influence a lot of just the sound that kind of naturally comes out of me in writing and singing and stuff.
So you began playing when you were 17, and now you're in your 30s. Or how have your performances and like writing evolved and panned out on how you play today from when you were 17?
Well, I think I'm a lot better. When I was 17, I was like, oh, I might start playing some gigs, and I remember the first gig I ever played was like, it was for a YMCA event, and I was just playing like cover songs that I'd like printed out on the sheets of paper because I hadn't memorized them. Uh, and like, it was such a weird experience. I was like, maybe I don't want to do this. And for a long time, I didn't really, didn't play. And I got into a lot of other aspects of music, like the production side of things. And I work in advertising too, so like that marketing side of things too. But I think, like, what's developed over time is just a desire to be honest, and in performing, trying to really portray, like this is me as a real person. I'm not trying to, like I'm putting on a show and I'm entertaining, but I'm entertaining with the idea that I'm like, you're not seeing a persona. This is actually who I am.
Right. And with that being said, a lot of your shows, what's the percentage of what you play that's original versus like cover songs?
It depends. Uh, it depends on the set, and the venue. There's like songwriting venues and stuff that, like tonight I'm playing. at a spot here in town that I actually took on the booking for to try to develop like a songwriter like showcase a little bit ongoing through the summer. And so I'm playing it myself tonight, and like that crowd knows me and knows like they want to hear my songs. So I mean, it'll probably be I think I'm playing a 2 hour set, so I would say like 80 to 90% of that will be my own songs, and I'll just throw one or two covers in there that I've been jamming on or something. And then there's like bar shows that I play with the band that are like those are like half and half, and I like my mentality on those sets. I have a headliner summer set that we do as a band that's around 3 hours long, and we it's kind of set up to like get people to turn their heads if they weren't paying attention, and give us the authority of like, oh, like these guys are really good. And so when they hear a song they know, and then the next song they hear one of mine, they're like, oh, I'm still engaged. So that's kind of the philosophy. I think if I were to put together a totally like just my own song set, I could probably it's probably around 2 or 3 hours of content. So probably in the middle of that.
Okay. That's cool though that you can kind of like play a cover song that's still your sound and then continue into your own originals and stuff like that and still kind of hold the crowd with it. So
Yeah, that's the goal.
I see a lot of posts on sports and stuff like that, and I guess the way you grew up too, you're a big sports fan. What are your teams? Like what are your go-to teams?
So I grew up in Boise. Um, there's not any like I think the closest team professional sports team is the Utah Jazz in Salt Lake. Um, and but my dad was a Red Sox fan, and I don't really even know if he has a reason why he watched the Red Sox. Um, but we were a big baseball family, so I watched a bunch of Red Sox games. We had like the Boston cable network somehow, and so I watched a lot of Boston sports. And I have yet to go there, which I think is hilarious. A lot of people are like, you're just a bandwagoner. I was like, no, I've like since I was really young, like I just watched Boston sports, and luckily for me, growing up, like that's like Tom Brady era. There's the Bruins did a lot, Celtics had another one, and just go. So yeah, unashamedly a Boston sports fan, and love. I guess I love the feeling of everyone hating me.
The Celtics just won. Did you watch the finals in that?
Yeah, I mean, and I'll be honest, it wasn't like crazy entertaining
Right.
as far as NBA finals go, but it was entertaining for me to, especially with the whole drama of like, I don't know if you know, like Kyrie played for Boston and like stomped on the logo, and there's all this drama in like in my opinion, Kyrie did literally nothing in Boston and just was a weenie, and so now to like win in Boston against him and beat Dallas was sweet for me.
So what is when you do those cover songs, what's the one cover song you love to play and what does it mean to you?
There's a lot of like fun songs that we play uh, that I like playing them just because they're like we have fun as musicians. Some simple stuff and like some country jams that we can play for 10 minutes if we wanted to. Just mess around. Sometimes we swap instruments, but I think like as far as songs that I really love playing, um, I've connected with a lot of like Tyler Childers, like playing those live. So we do. Not a song that he's released, but it's one he wrote. Actually, I might write the name. Uh, Jersey Giant. Uh, that's like a really fun one. Uh, so they're like so that's with the band. But if I'm playing solo and a little bit more slowed down, there's the artist name is escaping me. A song called "Peace in the Pines," which is basically just like when I die, Uh, don't do anything special. Just lay me under these trees next to my mom and my dad, and like just kind of I'm a pretty thorough mountain kid. Uh, I have zero desire for a beach or anything. Like, I just want to be under pine trees and next to mountain lakes and rivers. So I feel like I can turn some heads playing that too, just because like there's something that comes across of like, oh, like this means something to me. You know?
Right. And with that, like, I guess tell me the history behind that song, the song Los Angeles, and is it about a girl or the city? And now that you just said that, kind of the way you grew up, or what's that song about?
I wrote it as a joke, um, and it ended up catching a little traction, especially here in Boise. Like, if someone knows who I am, they're like, "Will you please sing it for me?" I'm like, oh. Yeah. I mean, I did never intend to be playing it as much as I do, but that's okay. Like a lot of people, so a lot of people here connect with it because we have a lot of Californians who have moved here, or other people who have moved from other states, and like our housing prices have like tripled and stuff, which is an issue. And I'm not really like triggered by any of that stuff. I actually wrote the song when I started writing and recording a little bit. There was a friend of mine. What's funny is today's actually his birthday, but I sent him a few samples of songs, and he was uh, he was like, "Dude, these are great." And he lives in LA and is pretty connected in that kind of like LA culture, and I love him. It's just not that life's not for me really. But he was. I've always known you need to move down to LA and like we can connect you with this person, and I was like, I don't think you understand why I'm doing this or what I'm doing, because I was just like, I have no desire to live in Los Angeles or Nashville. Um, I think there's definitely some like a desire to chase a dream of doing music on a larger scale, but like I'm just not willing to sell out like and live in a place that I feel personally is really unhealthy. Um, like my personal opinion, like I think like the LA area, like I don't, people. There's a lot of sunshine, but there's a lot of like, broken lives, and uh, it's just fast paced, busy living. Not a lot of like uh, thought for what you're doing, and so I kind of started writing that song just as like I'm kind of against that lifestyle, and so yeah, that's pretty much the story. So I wrote it from the perspective of like that it would be a girl, but it really was one of my best friends that we're talking about.
Nice. So with that, would you ever, want to play in like an iconic venue like the Hollywood Bowl, or like even playing like Coachella, where it is kind of more of that faster pace, like obviously on a tour rather than living there? Would you rather go play there?
Yeah, and I actually love visiting California. Um, there's some like I as a Red Sox fan, I really uh, hate the Dodgers, but I love Dodger Stadium. It's an iconic, there's a lot of iconic spots, uh, yeah, I don't mind vacationing there, but I think of like playing music in towns like that. Definitely not against. Like Nashville's actually one of my favorite cities to visit. I just couldn't see myself like caught up in that scene. Uh, living making a life in a place like that, unless it was like made sense.
So right now you're touring around Idaho. Have you ever done like a nationwide tour or anything like that? And how do you handle like traveling and being away from home for extended period of time?
I haven't done anything nationwide. I've stuck pretty much to the Northwest, and I'm working on a bunch of other stuff. So this is my third year, even just like playing my own content live. So I think like to be in a spot where I'm at, where I'm kind of for the most part, reach out wherever I want to play in Idaho or Wyoming, Montana, Oregon, and Washington, and Utah a little bit. Um, it's a I don't know, like a I didn't think I would be like this deep into it, I guess. Um, but yeah, I'm planning on some stuff in the Southwest in the next year or so. Maybe even all the like going as far east as like Chicago, things like that. You know, stuff in the works, but as far as being on the road, like most of July, I won't be home. And like so when I'm in Idaho, I'm just like a lot of what I do is like I'm gone for 4 or 5 days. I come home for a couple days and then I'm gone again. And like I wish music paid the bills, but I work in advertising, and honestly, I love what I do in advertising too. Have a really sweet job. I do like web design, graphic design, a little bit of video, a little photography, but also work remote. So there's some stuff that like our company's definitely based in Boise, but there's some stuff that I don't really need to be in town for. And, can do that easily on the road. So I also don't have a family. It's just me, and I try to live pretty minimally. So it's pretty easy to commit to yeah, I could like a few. I played in Salmon, Idaho, um, which is a pretty hard to get to spot in the country. Fairly remote. It's about 5 hours from here in Boise. Um, and they called me like I think 3 weeks before. I played this event last year, and they asked me to come back and headline it. But they were like super behind on planning. I was like, oh, I'm available. Yeah, I'll drive up to Salmon and do it. So it's pretty easy. There's not a lot I can have to say no to. There's some planning and stuff that goes with it.
Have you ever entered into any music competitions to get to where you are today?
No, um, no, I get which I think is funny that I get ads on Instagram and Facebook. Like, oh, you should enter this contest, and they're always like something like, oh yeah, so pay us $100 if you're entering. That I'm not paying anything. I've if I've had friends who have done well on like The Voice and American Idol and made it pretty far down the line on those shows, and like I think I'm in a place where that one of those opportunities could be fun, but it's not like I wouldn't be doing it so much. Like I wouldn't put a lot of eggs in that basket. So, if I was in the right mood and like one of those auditions roll through town, I might do it.
Right. On another song that you wrote, it's called Crooked Fingers. It talks about kind of like the end of life and whether or not you or believe that you're there, or also kind of like some little bit of hope left in life. Has like any current events played in a role in writing that song, or did something you went through, or?
Yeah, that song's actually not about me at all. It came from a conversation with my grandmother during COVID, who was, a little bit more worried about getting sick and possibly passing away. But also um, there was a lot of isolation for old people. Like my grandfather died a while ago, and so she lives with my aunt, but is still like she had to be pretty isolated from the world during all that. And so like I was just trying to put myself in her shoes of like how do you process that loneliness? How do you and there's like I think you would like to think that sweet old grandmas don't deal with depression and thoughts of suicide,
Right.
but like that's actually reality is different, and so yeah, I was just trying to like paint that picture and put myself in her shoes and other people's shoes, and be able to empathize. So,
Yeah. That's what's kind of cool about your music. It's like you said, you've evolved from 17 to 30, where you're actually bringing in that truth and that real feeling behind your songs rather than kind of like what's good about where you're at is you're more in that truth and authenticity behind the songs, not trying to, hey, I'm trying to get this catchy one hit wonder song like out there. It's kind of cool to see, you come through with a singer songwriter like feel and that truth behind it.
Yeah, that's the goal. I mean, not to be. I'm not trying to like. There's a dude I met once here in town who's like, I was born to be a famous pop star. And I was like, that is exactly the opposite of anything that I want to be. Like, if all I ever do is like just play, the venues in Southern Idaho, I'm perfectly fine with that. Like the I would take more for sure, but the like getting to go to a town, they put you up, they pay you, you get bar tab, it's beautiful. Like most places here, we're just like I'm playing in a small mountain town that I'm going to be fly fishing or mountain biking in anyways. Then I could do that for a long time and still be happy.
Right. And within that song, Crooked Fingers, you had an artist, Gail, who complements the song really well. Are there any aspirations or collaborations, if you do make it a little bit bigger, to record with an artist that, would you ever entertain that?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I'm actually trying. I've been trying to think a lot more like collaboratively. Um, like I've got a few projects in the works. I've got a single that is about to cross the finish line, and then we'll announce some release dates, and then um, like an acoustic project, and then a record that I've been writing that's pretty close to done. But like thinking about that, um, I as I've grown in writing, I think more about like okay, um, I know what I can add to this, but what if like somebody else sang this first, and so yeah, I mean I would absolutely um, invite other people into stuff.
Is there any artist that you would like have in mind that you would love to collaborate with, or
Um, there's there's a few like let me look it up so I can get her name right. So like there's probably like famous people um, that would be fun, but there's a lot of like Nashville songwriters um, that I love, and she's not super not famous, but Ingrid Andress and there's one more, Emily Weisman. There's a couple female vocalists and songwriters, and I'm like, oh man, this would be people I listen to their writing and stuff. That would be sweet to collaborate.
yeah?
But I'd also like I totally do a Post Malone collaboration too. you know, not not against that either.
So that experience, like any experiences during COVID, I know that you said that you've just been playing kind of the last 3 years or so, which is still kind of in some part of isolation in COVID. I know it, talking to some artists and musicians, COVID was a hard time because you can't perform or anything like that. How did it? And obviously, it did affect you with like writing Crooked Fingers. Was there any other ways that really affected you?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it's what got me to start writing. I'd written a few songs over the years, but never really like thought of myself as a songwriter. I'm an artist in a lot of other capacities, but it was something I'd always like wanted to do. But I was like, oh, I'd never really like uh, had the courage to share it with somebody. And I just started like I had out of abundance of free time, picked up my guitar, started writing some things down, and shared them with some buddies, and like kind of found a in one way I found a really cool outlet to my own emotions and experiences, like in where other art forms had become um, more of a work task. Uh, Songwriting was something that was like, oh, like this is can kind of do whatever I want. So yeah, like I wasn't at a performing state then, so I didn't feel the loss of venues and things like that. But I did come into it, uh, and I have noticed a lot of like venues getting back on their feet. And like, oh, if you were here before 2020, it was so different. So that's kind of my experience.
Almost therapeutic, almost writing. And
Yeah. Oh yeah.
so you said, but so besides the summer tour that you have throughout like Idaho, what are other future plans you have for touring or recording? I know that you said maybe the Southwest and you have a single coming out. Any like um, ideas of a full album or anything like that coming out?
Yep. Yeah. So I'm working on a record right now. I mostly written one last year, and had tracked almost all of it. And some of those songs might get repurposed in other ways, but kind of like I kind of realized that I had changed a lot, or I'd matured at least a little bit, where I would walk into a studio and I didn't really know how to think, what to say. Uh, I didn't. I was familiar with the process, but like I'd never been in the position that I was in doing it, and so not that those songs were bad in any way, but I was just like, okay, I know now what my sound is, and I'm not. I'm super proud of everything we put out. I just think like the next wave of songs is going to be like this. This last single is probably the last single to sound like that, and the next wave of songs after that is kind of like the next iteration of what I've been working on. So scrap that record. Kept a couple things, released a few things, and we'll probably release a few more and rework them. But yeah, working on a new record that's it's not like a crazy different sound, but it is. I think it's more like finite of like this is what I am, trying to say or portray in my writing. And then as far as tours, yeah, like there's a lot of like made a lot of connections over the last year, the last couple of years. So I've got friends like down in Austin or Houston, or Nashville or scattered throughout California. So there's a lot of, or even like Seattle, which isn't crazy far from us, but there's a lot of um, routes that make sense of like okay, like a show at this spot is can happen easily, um, so it's filling in the gaps. Of, all right, so I'm gonna go play in Houston, in Austin, like where am I gonna find in like Utah or Colorado or New Mexico to kind of fill the gaps
Right.
on the way.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thanks for meeting with me. Yeah, good luck in all your endeavors and all your songs and anything like that, and like albums coming out, and yeah, in future touring. And I'm hopefully I'll come out there to Idaho and see you. We have maybe we can stay with Mark or somebody else and kind of come check you out.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, thanks for meeting with me.
Yeah, man. Good day.